Welcome to today's podcast, and today we're going to look at autism or emotional harm, how to tell the difference and why trusting yourself matters. So this is one of the most difficult episodes in this entire series because it asks you to trust what you feel even when you've been taught not to. So this channel is for Cassandra syndrome sufferers, most of which are neurotypical wives married to autistic husbands, although it's a mixed bag. It's the other way around sometimes too, of course. Now, many women wrote in saying something along the lines of, I don't want to blame autism. I'm scared of being unfair. What if I'm misinterpreting everything? Those are understandable statements. But I know that you know that something still feels wrong. So today we're talking about the difference between autism-related limitations and emotional harm, and why naming the difference is crucial for your mental health. This is not about labeling your husband as bad. He's a good guy. I would like him just fine. It's about protecting your reality. So now, before we begin, pause with me. Take one slow, deep breath in. Let it out gently. You're not here to accuse or diagnose. You're here to understand. Now, the questions in this episode come from women who said something along the lines of, I feel hurt, but I don't know if I'm allowed to because he has a disorder, quote unquote. So if you've felt that confusion, you're not alone. So these questions have been summarized. Here's question 1. How do I know what's autism and what's emotional harm? Okay, well the answer is, this is the most important distinction in this series. Autism explains limitations in perception and processing, whereas emotional harm shows up in patterns of impact over time. Let's break this down. Autism may look like missing emotional cues, literal interpretation, difficulty expressing empathy, emotional shutdown under stress, and you may have labeled that as insensitivity, uncaring, selfish, narcissistic, and so on, not faulting you. But let's contrast that with emotional harm. Emotional harm looks like your pain consistently being dismissed, your reality being minimized, your needs being framed as unreasonable, and you shrinking or silencing or doubting yourself over time. So, autism does explain why something is hard, but it does not erase what it does to you. So another grounding moment here. If this feels clarifying and painful at the same time, let's pause. Both reactions are valid. Breath. Okay. One listener asked this question with a lot of fear. What if he doesn't mean to hurt me? Okay, well, intent matters, but it doesn't override impact. Many forms of harm are unintentional. I'll give you that. Many injuries are accidental. I understand. But your nervous system does not respond to intent. It responds to experience. So if you are consistently left alone emotionally, your body experiences that as harm even if no harm was intended. Acknowledging impact is not the same as assigning blame. So you can realize that, okay, well, that wasn't the intent, but the impact was the same, and for me to acknowledge that doesn't mean I'm blaming or shaming my ASD husband. Grounding moment, please. If guilt rises when you hear this, pause. Guilt often shows up when you're being taught to override yourself or to doubt yourself. Several women ask this next question almost apologetically. Am I being unfair by calling this harmful? Well, Fairness is not the standard of emotional truth. Reality is. So if something repeatedly hurts you, erodes you, or destabilizes your mental health, it deserves to be named, regardless of intent or explanation. You can be compassionate and honest. You can understand autism and acknowledge harm. You don't need to choose one. If you've been holding yourself to impossible standards of understanding, let's pause. You're allowed to be human. Let's breath. One listener wrote, "Every time I bring this up, I'm told it's just autism." Okay. Here's a question related to that. When is autism being used to excuse harmful behavior? Okay, that's a great question. Autism becomes an excuse when your pain is dismissed rather than addressed. There's no accountability for impact. You're expected to adapt endlessly, and growth is never expected of him, but always of you. Explanation becomes excuse when it ends the conversation instead of opening it. So, autism can explain behavior, but it does not invalidate your experience. Now, if you've felt shut down by that explanation, let's pause. Being silenced is not the same as being understood. Many women ask this next question with deep self-doubt. This is question number 5. Why do I keep doubting myself? Because chronic invalidation erodes self-trust. You know, when your feelings are questioned, your reactions are minimized, your reality is reframed repeatedly, you begin to second-guess your own perception. That's not confusion, that's conditioning. And it's one of the most damaging effects of this dynamic. Now, if you've lost confidence in your inner voice, let's pause. It's still there. It's just been drowned out. One listener asked this next question very quietly. How do I know if this has crossed into emotional abuse? Okay, great question. Ask yourself, do I feel afraid to express myself? Do I feel responsible for my autistic husband's emotions? Do I feel smaller than I used to? Do I doubt myself? Do I feel emotionally unsafe? So abuse is not about diagnosis. It's about power, impact, and erosion. You don't need a label to honor your experience. Now, if that question stirred some fear, let's pause, breath. Clarity can feel destabilizing at first. Several women ask this next question with a certain amount of grief. What if I've been minimizing harm to survive? I would say the chances are really good that you have been minimizing harm to survive. That's common and understandable. In fact, I would go so far as to say minimizing pain is a survival strategy. You probably needed it at some level, especially when acknowledging it feels overwhelming or destabilizing. You didn't minimize because you were dishonest or weak. You minimized because you needed to keep functioning. So, we could say that survival strategies are not character flaws. Okay? Now, if compassion for yourself just appeared again, let's notice it. That's healing. One listener asked this final question with honesty. What do I do once I see the difference clearly? Well, you don't have to rush into decisions. You stop gaslighting yourself. You stop over-explaining your pain to your autistic husband. You start prioritizing emotional safety instead of working on him. You seek informed support. I hope you find that here on this YouTube channel. And you allow clarity to guide, not force change. Seeing clearly doesn't demand action, but it does demand self-respect. Now, if this episode unsettled you, I want you to hear this very clearly. You're not cruel for naming it. You're not a bad wife. You're not ignorant for understanding autism. You're not broken for feeling hurt. Trusting yourself is not betrayal, it's survival. And now I'd like to ask a few reflection questions. Think about this for a few seconds. What behaviors hurt me most regardless of explanation? Where have I minimized my experience to stay functional? What happens in my body when my reality is dismissed? What feels clearer after listening to this podcast? And what would trusting myself look like even a little bit? You don't need to answer yet. Clarity comes first. Now, in the next episode, we're going to talk about what comes after clarity and how to protect yourself emotionally without making immediate, overwhelming decisions. So until then, be gentle with yourself. Looking at the truth takes courage, and we're going to do that with these podcasts. Please like, subscribe. Also, please comment below. How have you found the difference between autism and the traits thereof and emotional harm? In other words, where there was some degree of malicious intent involved. I read and respond to all comments. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. If you are a neurotypical wife in a marriage with an ASD level 1 husband, and you feel like you're suffering from Cassandra syndrome, then there's going to be a link below this video in the description area and also pinned in the comment section that will take you to my Cassandra syndrome recovery group. We meet 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. I hope to see you in that group.